Hello, teachers and staff. And this week's tech tip is all about your favorite presentation software and mine, PowerPoint. Now, I say PowerPoint, but really this advice will work with any presentation software, whether it's Google Slides, Apple's Keynote, or even some of the new stuff that's trying to break the mold like Microsoft Sway. Now, if you are using Prezi, no offense, but please stop. It's all the zooming and swiping can be really distracting and even make some students a bit nauseous. That really gets to something I'd really like to talk about along with this video, which is the philosophy of Tech Tip Tuesday. With teaching, it's really easy to lose focus of what our main craft is, which is really just giving knowledge from us to our students. And the technology, which can be really new and bright and shiny, can often distract from that. Our administrators and the district will adopt some new technology and they really want to push it, and they think that it's the latest and greatest thing and it's going to change everything. But in reality, no teacher is one piece of software or one website away from achieving teaching perfection, right? It's really just our personalities, our humor, our ability to connect with our students, and our ability to deliver a focused, on-point message that meets our objectives and really allows our students to reach those outcomes. So today, what I really want to stress is how to make our PowerPoint presentations as simple and effective as possible. Anytime I create a new presentation, I really like to think about one of the greatest presenters of our time, the late Steve Jobs. He completely changed the way presentations happened with his keynote addresses, right? If you look back at those keynote addresses that he made to introduce the iPhone and the iPad, his slides were incredibly simple, often only a few words on a slide or no words on a slide, just an image. The main focus was on him. The audience was focused on him, and he was telling a story and getting the information that he needed to get across to his audience while the presentation just played backup. So one thing that's going to help us create focused, on-point presentations is sticking to a consistent theme. If you look at any organization that has to create PowerPoint presentations with any kind of regularity, you'll notice that almost all of their presentations use a cohesive theme. For example, if we take a look at one of my district's PowerPoints, you'll notice that it's got a very simple, very cohesive theme, a single font, a couple of colors, and they use this as a framework for all of their presentations. As teachers, we really know consistency is king. Think about how much more focused our students are on a regular day versus, say, a teacher planning day or a day with an assembly, right? And think about some of your early days in teaching before you had your routines and your rules all ironed out. It might seem like an exaggeration, but a consistent PowerPoint theme actually can help our students focus. When elements are always in the same place, they know where to look to take their notes or to look for key information. One thing I want to pay particular attention to on this slide is the colors. So our county colors are blue. So they chose a very simple color palette of blue and white and a little accent color there of like a kind of grayish silver. So that brings me to color palette. There's sort of a misconception that our students need constant stimulation, lots of colors and graphics. We need to play a bunch of YouTube videos. But really, I don't think that's true. I think that our personalities and our humor can focus our students and can draw in engagement. But I think everything else can be a bit of a distraction. So as you can see here with my theme, I've got a simple white text on a blue background, and sometimes I'll use a little bit of a complementary color for emphasis. So as you can see here, the complement to blue is orange. So whenever I want to draw some emphasis, I use this sort of golden orange color. So we can see here, if I were to give a definition, for example, I'll put the word in the title of the slide, and then I'll put in the definition, and some of the key parts of that definition I'll draw their attention to with that accent color. The next thing I want to talk about is animations. This is really where some teachers can go a little bit crazy, or really, even students. A lot of us have assigned PowerPoint presentations as a project, and things can go a little bit wild when we go crazy with the animations. I'd say there's really one animation you want to stick to in one very particular instance, and that's the appear animation. Simply, it just makes text appear. So, and that's when you've got your major premise at the top, and then you just have some bullet points. And I think that this animation can be effective because it stops the students from focusing on all of the information all at once. So if all of your points were to pop up on the slide at as soon as the slide starts, you're going to have students just frantically taking notes, and they're completely lost focus on what you're saying. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is pictures. So pictures are a really big part of a good presentation because they allow us to get across visual information that we'd never be able to do with just our words. But pictures are also probably one of the things that I see the most mistakes with. The first thing is choosing a really high quality image. We want to choose images that have the highest resolution possible. Now, I have a video coming up in the future that's all about how to use Google to find really good images. But for now, we really just need to focus on what's called the resolution. So when you search for images on Google, usually right below the title, you're going to see two numbers that are separated by an X, and that's the resolution. Now, ideally, we just want that number to be as high as possible, but as long as it's above 800 by 800, you're going to be okay. Another thing I'd like to talk about with pictures is avoiding using pictures that have watermarks. So people who sell photos like Shutterstock will add a watermark on their images because they want you to purchase them. So using pictures with watermarks on them come with a few problems. One, the watermark is really distracting as it's covering up the majority of the photo. Two, these websites usually sell much higher quality images with the watermarks removed. So they're usually just giving you the smallest, lowest quality image just as a teaser to get you to buy it. And three, it sets a really bad example. We don't want our students using images like this either. And really, these websites are selling this. So when we put these on our slides, it's sort of a low form of plagiarism. Now, the last thing I'd like to talk about with pictures is resizing. And this is easily one of my biggest pet peeves. So when I talk about resizing, what I mean is two things. One is simply making images bigger and smaller. So that goes back to what I was saying before with choosing the largest image that you can. Because when we blow a large image up, it keeps that quality. This one looks pretty nice. Where if we take this one that's a lot smaller and blow it up, you can see it looks a lot worse, right? It's a lot more pixelated. So again, we really want to choose the highest quality images that we can with the highest resolution. But easily, the biggest pet peeve of mine is when people resize images and they don't maintain what's called aspect ratio. So put simply, aspect ratio is just the ratio of the height to the width. So if the aspect ratio of this image was 1:2 and we wanted to double its size, right, then it would just be 2:4. And the reason why that's really important, and this is going to ruin you for the rest of your life once you know about it, is because when people try to smush images, then they ruin the aspect ratio. You can see here how things start to look terrible, look smushed. So if we wanted to make this image into a banner at the top, you wouldn't want to just smush it down like that because now we have a poor flat kitty. And if you wanted to put it on the side, maybe have some text on the left and the image on the right, right? Now we've got a tall, thin kitty and it looks terrible. So we always want to maintain the aspect ratio. And the way we can do that is by always pulling from the corners. When you select an image and all of these dots come up and you pull from the corner, the height and the width will always grow equal to each other. So the biggest area where I see this messed up is a tendency to want to make images full screen when you're applying an image to a slide with no text. And you can see here, if we maintain the aspect ratio, we're not getting the full screen. So that's when people will pull on this bottom dot and disform the kitty. Now, this image was really close to the ratio of the screen already, so it doesn't look awful, but still, it's a bad practice. So there's two things you can do instead. One is you can stretch the image to be just a little bit bigger than the canvas area itself. And then now it's taking up the full screen and we didn't ruin the aspect ratio. The second thing we can do is we can keep it at its original size and then just center it by using the red guidelines. They may be a little hard to see on my screen right now, but when you're working on your presentations, you'll have these little red rulers that'll pop up. And as soon as they intersect in the middle, that means your image is centered. And this is usually the method I prefer, because you can also keep your theme and have your nice background while you have the image being center focused right in the middle. So in short, you really can't go wrong with just keeping things simple. I didn't even show a single option in the ribbon. Now, does PowerPoint have a lot of really interesting settings, options, and little knobs you can turn? Sure, but I'd argue that not only do they not add anything, they really can take away from a solid presentation. I really like to think of a good PowerPoint as like adding spices to a meal. If you've done it right, your guests aren't even going to notice. Thank you so much for watching this week's video. I'm really trying to grow this series, so if you've liked what you've seen so far, please consider sharing this with your colleagues, even those at other schools, and your feedback helps a ton. So if you can go over to the Canvas homepage and click on the Microsoft Forms icon, you can ask me a question, you can give me some advice, or you can share an idea that you'd like to see for a future video.